Hello everyone, welcome to the next edition of Language Talks. We have a youngster with us today to talk about his passion for languages and literature. He is joining us from Munich, Germany. He is currently pursuing his doctorate in the field of German literature at the Institute of German Philology, Ludwig-Maximilians-University Munich in Germany, on a research scholarship granted by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, Berlin. He has completed all the German language courses at the Goethe Institute in Pune. He was endowed a premium scholarship by the Goethe Institute for completing his C2 in Göttingen, Germany. He did his bachelor's in German studies from the Savitribai Phule Pune University and then went to New Delhi for his further studies. He did his master's from the Jawaharlal Nehru University with a specialization in German literature. During the master's course, he was awarded 2 scholarships, one by the Baden-Württemberg Foundation to study 1 entire semester at the University of Freiburg, and another one by the DAAD for participating in a 2-week summer school at the University of Bielefeld. In addition, he has received formal training in Indian classical music, vocal, since the age of 5. He has also completed his Advanced Diploma in Spanish from the Department of Foreign Languages, Savitribai Phule Pune University. He belongs to a family of renowned language experts. Let us talk to him and understand about the legacy he inherits, a very impressive legacy, and also about his passion for languages. Welcome to the show, Ritwik. I look forward to a wonderful conversation with you.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me here in this interview series. You have interviewed some really experienced and knowledgeable scholars, language experts, writers, translators. It is a pleasure and a humbling experience to be a part of this interview series.
Oh, that's nice of you to say that, Ritwik. And you are also, I think, one of the youngsters who is pursuing languages and doing a wonderful job. So welcome to the show, and let us start this wonderful discussion. So Ritwik, you belong to an impressive legacy of literary figures and scholars. So how does it feel?
Yes, for the larger audience who might not be aware of my family background, you know me personally,
Yes.
But for the larger audience who might not be aware, I'll just quickly introduce my family and then come back to your question.
Please.
My father, Ritwik Gajendragadkar, he's a senior journalist and an executive editor at the Daily Kesari, the newspaper founded by the great nationalist and freedom fighter Lokmanya Tilak. For over 40 years, or almost 40 years now, he has been writing extensively on Indian as well as international cinema, in Marathi as well as English, and also on Hindi film music.
Okay.
My mother, Varsha Gajendragadkar, an author, translator, an expert in environmental studies, and I think her most important contribution to Marathi literature is the translation of Gone with the Wind from English to Marathi. And recently, she has also published a concise encyclopedia of its kind in Marathi, comprising of all the important terminologies associated with the environmental studies.
Okay.
And she has received quite a few awards, including 2 state awards for her books, and has published over 25 books. And currently, she is heading production and publishing of books for children of different age groups. My maternal aunt, Aruna Dhere, she doesn't really need an introduction. She's a familiar name, not just in the field of literature in Maharashtra, but also in households all over Maharashtra. She has published and authored several books, has received many prestigious awards. But what many might not be aware of is that she has a strong research background, and she has been focusing on the portrayal of mythological women characters in the Vyasa Mahabharata, like Rukmini or Draupadi, and also Sita in Ramayana. And she has also been working extensively for quite some time on female saints all over India, not just in Maharashtra, and their spiritual writings. My maternal grandfather, R.C. Dhere, he was a research scholar par excellence. He has over 100 original research publications to his name. And he was one of the pioneers in the field of cultural anthropology as far as Marathi-speaking cultural space is concerned. And his research areas included examining the cultural dialogues between Maharashtra and the South Indian states based on the folk gods, the practices of worship, etc. And my paternal grandfather, Ritwik Gajendragadkar, he was a classical musician and a musicologist. So he played the flute and performed all over India and also abroad, and also published books on the theory and evolution of North Indian classical music, and also wrote books for self-learning in classical music. So research, not research, but guides and manuals, tutorials, etc. And now coming back to the question, how does it feel belonging to this family? Yes, I feel proud. Of course, I feel proud to be a part of this family and to belong to this legacy. And the fact that I can be introduced as related to any one of them, it makes me immensely proud. At the same time, it gives a sense of responsibility, and it keeps me motivated to work hard and carve a niche for myself in the field that I am, because my parents or my grandfathers, they did not have a godfather in their fields. They really worked hard to stand by themselves professionally. And I think what has always inspired me is that no one has ever copied each other's path. Everyone tried to find their own interests and then pursue them. So that is inspiring.
Yes. Yes, this is a very important thing that you have said, that everybody, carved a niche for herself or himself. And that's really very, very important. Ritwik, now a curious question. In an era when youngsters are attracted to careers in AI, artificial intelligence, and automobiles, how did you decide to pursue a career in languages?
I have to be honest with you. As I was completing my school education, I knew what I did not want to do. So I was clear what I did not want to do. So engineering, medical science, MBA, accounting, all these technical fields, HR, that I knew this was not for me. I would not just enjoy being there just because many opt for these subjects. And I was in 9th standard when I did a crash course, a beginner's course in German. Because I was learning Sanskrit in my school. So after 10th, I just decided to opt for arts and explore what all avenues there are in the field of foreign languages. Because, as I said, I did not want to copy my parents. So joining arts did not necessarily mean joining media and communication studies and then become a journalist or enter into the field of Marathi literature. So I just wanted to see what is it that I can do here. I had no clue that I would one day be sitting in Munich and pursuing my PhD. I had never thought about it. And besides German, I joined, of course, Ferguson College, and I opted for German, but I also parallelly started learning Spanish at the Department of Foreign Languages in Ranade Institute, Pune University. And those 3 years, the certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma in Spanish, those 3 years played a very crucial role in shaping my career and my way till now, because that teaching learning process, it helped me to break free from the typical classroom learning. Understand. Yes, I got that freedom I wanted to firstly think on my own, form my own opinions, and then look at language as an appropriate way to express my opinions and thoughts. So we had discussions in Spanish at Ranade, we had discussions on anything and everything. So from European art and literary history, films, to sustainable development and the problem of poverty in India, leading to lack of appropriate education in the early age groups. So that opened, as far as language learning is concerned, my vocabulary grew, but that really opened me up to what this area can offer an individual if one decides to take that seriously. So more than the language, this encounter with European art and history and the European literature. Of course, the focus in Spanish was Spanish literature and Spanish art. But that encounter and the discussions associated with these subjects, that was my main motivation to continue pursuing foreign languages. And it was not possible in Pune to pursue a bachelor's degree in Spanish. And because I was parallelly learning German, then I switched to German and decided to do my majors in German studies.
You have completed all the levels of German language learning at the Goethe Institute, studied at the Pune University and Delhi University as well. Can you tell us about your learning experience at various institutions? I mean, their approaches, teaching methodologies.
Yes, but before I try and answer this question, let me also make myself very clear that I do not intend to criticize any academic institution or put any bad light on any particular academic institution. These are just my opinions, my observations, which I would share. And this platform is giving me the chance to share those observations. So it is just my personal view.
Sure.
At the Goethe Institute, the focus was to master the language. So using language as a tool of communication and then to have a conversation on any topic. So if one reaches the higher levels, C1, C2 is the highest level, one is not really expected to speak like a native speaker. That is a misunderstanding, which many people have. But the main aim is to have the language proficiency so that if anyone decides to pursue a degree program with a medium of instruction, German, language should not be a barrier. So you could do an MBA in German or an engineering program in German. So the language should not be a barrier. Also professionally, they have to work in an atmosphere where everything happens in German, the contracts, the legal documents, and then they should not face problems while going through them. That is the focus at the Goethe Institute, language as a tool. At the university level, especially the bachelor's in Pune, I think the focus was to obtain an introductory overview of this field. So apart from grammar and vocabulary, the other subjects included an account of the social and political history of Germany, starting from the ancient era to the reunification of Germany in 1989. So a huge time frame. Region-specific cultural and geographical aspects, an overview of the history of literature in the German-speaking space, and also philosophy. And then we had practical exercises, so translating non-fictional or technical texts from German to English, etc. It sounds a lot, and let me make myself clear. I'm not trying to motivate or discourage anyone to take up or not to take up this path. I'm just sharing my experience once again. It sounds a lot, especially if we realize that the actual specialization starts not in the first year, but the second year of bachelor's. But as I said, the aim or how I looked at it was that this was a trailer. It gave me a picture of what it might be to enter deep waters of the German studies and German literature. And that was when it was clear to me that a bachelor's is not enough. I have to go deeper and I have to pursue a master's. Because as far as literary theory and literary studies is concerned, in Pune, we analyzed certain poems as good examples, as appropriate examples of particular literary periods, or read the summaries of longer texts. But when I went to JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi for my master's, the professors there, they wanted us to actually take a step back and ask questions pertaining to the object of knowledge of our field itself. So the object of knowledge of literary studies is literature. And what is it that makes literature stand out from other objects of knowledge, which are the focus, say, in natural sciences, for instance, biology or chemistry, etc. And then it was not necessary to analyze a particular poem or a text as a good example of a literary period, but we had to ask the basic question whether that text is really a good example of a given literary period, or it was at the same time transcending certain norms. To what extent does an author play a role while interpreting a literary text? To what extent does the social and political commitment of an author plays a role while interpreting, especially if the political views of the characters that are portrayed in the text differs to that of the personal life of an author. And it was slowly that I realized that thinking on these lines, pursuing these questions is what critical thinking actually means. So at the university level, it was almost imperative to pursue these questions and not really focus on the language. The language becomes a medium to express something. And what do we have to express? Our own arguments. So how we look at literary texts, at the authors and their works at different literary periods, and how we contextualize them and recontextualize them given what our focus is. That is what really matters. And I was fortunate that my mentors, my professors, they never spoon-fed, and critical thinking cannot be spoon-fed. It comes with time. And I would go one step ahead and say it comes with spending time with your own subject.
Yes, it's the exposure you get.
Yes, it's more. The more we think, the more we read, the more we discuss, that the more we realize what we are actually doing. And my mentors, they wanted me to ask these questions, to look at more and more such topics, such literary texts, and become as independent as I can. So spoon feeding was thrown out of the window.
Right.
And then I would also like to add my experience of studying German literature in Germany, because in Germany, we are free to do anything and everything. The libraries are well equipped, well updated, and everything what a research student wants or would ideally want to have, he or she gets that. And again, with the great freedom comes great responsibility. Because one has exposure to so much, one has access to almost everything, that one has to be as precise as possible while finding his or her own research topic. And the professors, again, are very approachable, very, very nice and understanding. But we have to do our homework before we schedule a meeting with them and discuss what we find hard or what we want to work on. Because here the professors generally, they tend to wait. They want us to take the first step. And then they would be more than happy to give concrete suggestions and how we could then make progress. And again, freedom doesn't mean that we keep prolonging our studies. They have utmost respect for people who are self-disciplined and who complete their studies in time.
The exposure to all these institutions has widened your approach and given you so much. Ritwik, before embarking on the journey of learning foreign languages, you had been learning Indian classical music for quite some time. Did that teaching and learning experience help you in any way while learning languages?
Yes. My first love has been music, Indian classical music. And again, I had the good fortune of learning music from visionaries who did not allow me to copy or merely follow them when I was learning. I had to come up with something different, something new, something of my own, because Indian classical music, the most important aspects are spontaneity, creativity, improvisation, and originality. So each performer is well aware that the traditional ragas, the compositions, the notation, that is going to remain the same. And how that performer interprets those ragas, those compositions, and then decides to present them in front of the audience. That is what matters. And my training in this direction started at a very young age, because my paternal grandfather, being a classical musician and a guru himself, he used to throw small challenges at me whenever we met, whenever we wanted to have fun. It was always somewhere related to music. So he used to throw tans at me or a notation in one rag, and then he used to ask me to repeat that after him. And then he would say, okay, do something like this, the way I have shown you. And after a few days, he did not stay with us. He used to live separately. He used to randomly call and then check whether I remembered.
Oh, okay.
So my listening skills, my attention to details, my attention to what others were doing, that improved. And that started, I started training unknowingly at a very early age. And I owe a lot to this teaching learning process in Indian classical music, because unknowingly it introduced me to what critical thinking is all about. I was just talking about critical thinking, and it was not completely foreign to me when I was then in this field of German studies at the master's level.
That's right. Ritwik, are there any specific areas or languages you are particularly passionate about when you are in your studies?
Yes, I think the most area, the area which is very dear to me is the German literature at the end of the 18th century. That is the period of German classicism in the history of German literature. And it includes the works of two of the most important and influential authors, when they were authors, poets, playwrights, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and Friedrich Schiller. And their writings, of course, there were other contemporaries as well, but their writings fascinate me. And the other area is that of literary theory. So how, in what ways can one approach literature itself? It is a very abstract and complex area, which I always want to go deeper into, because it doesn't have an end. There are different models of literary theory, which will, of course, argue with each other at an abstract, at a meta level. But to get to know them and then to look at the same text in different ways, from different theoretical positions, it is really an experience in itself. And the third area is the literature in the first half of the 20th century, the German-speaking literature in the first half of the 20th century. That time also plays an important role in my own PhD thesis. And this time, this phase, as well as the literature or the historical phase towards the end of 18th century in German-speaking cultural space, these two periods, they are marked by great social and political upheaval. Towards the end of 18th century, there was the French Revolution. The beginning of the 20th century, there was political instability before and after the First World War, which eventually led to the Second World War. And many thinkers and authors in both these eras, they were deeply affected by the disruption of peace and the crisis that the society had to face. And interestingly, they saw in literature a unique power. A power not just to address the issues and the harsh realities that everyone was facing, but they also wanted to encourage the readers through their literature to be the change themselves, to act and act differently, so that there might be a different reality. I wouldn't use the word better, but at least a different reality. So that is something that close connect of literature and society, and in the context of the political and historical happenings, which so much influence not just the thinkers, but also the life of common people. That interests me a lot. Because
literature is society, is connected to society.
Of course.
And I think you are interested in both. Ritwik, you are various languages. Can you share some insights into your approach to learning languages?
I haven't been asked this question before. Thank you so much. As far as acquiring language skills is concerned, I try to be a clean slate. The Latin expression is tabula rasa. I absolutely try my best to be blank. Because when we start learning English at a very young age, we don't really ask questions. We tend to take everything at its face value.
Yeah.
So I do the same for when I am learning German or Spanish. Because when we learn grammar in a new language, there are so many things which transcend logic. And then we have to remember them just as they are. So asking the question, why like this? Why not like that? Just because we as adults are embarking on this journey of learning a new language or a foreign language, that doesn't really make sense to me. At the same time, I practice articulating in that language a lot.
Okay.
So I write and I speak in that language very often when I'm learning that language, especially in the initial phases, because we unknowingly tend to think in the language we are good at, be it our mother tongue, be it English. So it is important that we come out of that influence and start slowly thinking in the language that we are learning. So reading in that language, listening to radio or TV or watching films in those language, yes, that helps. But the grasping is passive when we are reading or listening. But when we are writing, when we are speaking, we're actively using what we are learning. And that helped me a lot.
Okay. Unless we articulate, we will not know.
Yes. Because my main objective while articulating myself was that no one should say, oh, this is a Marathi speaking person trying to speak Spanish or trying to speak German. And that happens when we all speak English, we have that Indian accent, or when I speak Hindi also, people realize that he's a Marathi speaker.
Yes.
And I did not want that to happen when I would be using German or Spanish. I wanted to get my diction right and speak without any accent, without letting some other language skills dominate my German or my Spanish. And as far as literary studies is concerned, I learned a lot by closely observing my maternal grandfather, Dr. R.C. Dhere.
Okay.
I had the good fortune to accompany him during a few of his research tours to South India. And he used to visit the temples, not just to inquire and look at the architecture and get his details right, which he had read in while doing his own preparation. But he also visited the office of the trust of that temple and looked for certain books. He knew exactly what books he wanted to buy, or also the university bookstores. These are the research papers which we don't really find in the normal bookstores.
Yes.
So when he bought them, he, in the hotel room in the evening or after coming back home from that tour, he used to go through the table of contents and the bibliography and the footnotes. And then he used to make his own notes. So he knew exactly, before starting his own writing, starting his own research project, he knew exactly what was useful for him, what he still had to look into. And then he knew exactly how he was going to structure his own chapters while referring to the pre-existing research.
Right.
And these observations now, I feel that they are priceless, because when I had to think in this fashion, when I had to write term papers and longish research papers for my PhD, he was not around to personally guide me, but because I had seen him work in this fashion so closely, it was as if he was, and he is telling me today also, that go for this, try to find this book, try to answer this question before you submit anything. And these observations are etched in my memory. So it's absolutely priceless.
You're so fortunate and lucky to have such a background. And also you have, like a sponge, you have taken it in everything. In this language learning journey, and I'm sure you will learn many more languages in the future, you must have had faced challenges. And I would like to know them, and how did you overcome? Especially there is, like you have mentioned already, pronunciation is there, or certain phrases or dialects. I would like to know about it.
As far as learning and grasping grammar or vocabulary is concerned, I did not face any major challenges. Of course, it takes time. Of course, we make mistakes and either use the wrong words or tend to choose wrong contexts for using certain verbs. That happens with everyone. I'm no exception. But I did not have a major challenge in that aspect.
Okay.
I mentioned being a clean slate when I learn a new language. That can also be dangerous because that implies complete trust in the person who is teaching you or who is the course in charge. And sometimes the teachers tend to tell wrong things. Unknowingly, I'm not criticizing anyone, but sometimes they themselves have learned certain things in the wrong way, and they tell those unknowingly to their students when they become teachers. And what that means for a student like me is when I reached the higher levels, I had to unlearn and relearn certain things, which was firstly time consuming, but especially if we take certain things very seriously and if we internalize the usage of certain phrases, certain words in the given contexts, it is not easy to unlearn them. So I learned it the hard way. And at the university level, if we change institutions, I mean, you also mentioned in my introduction that I changed institutions. It is important to adjust to the different working and thinking styles. Each university, each department has its own way of functioning. And it takes time to get used to that functioning. And what helped me to overcome this, having discussions, conversations with my fellow colleagues, my classmates who were used to that system, who were a part of that system for way longer than I was. So I used to ask them, why is this important? How are you approaching this? If they had a good argument in the class, I would then first, of course, compliment them and then ask, how did you think of this? How did you come up with this? What were the references? What would you suggest me? What should I read as a background reading, etc.? So having these conversations, it really helps. And there is no harm in accepting that you don't know something. I always do that. So, and I begin my own journey. I always begin it with small steps. So in LMU, I arrived in Munich in the most difficult times. Corona affected everything, not just travel, but also mobility and then studies, because there was no access to the libraries. The classes were not happening offline. And so my guide put me in touch with one of his colleagues. I was reworking my PhD synopsis. So I requested him to go through the synopsis more than once. So the first synopsis that I submitted was 5 to 6 pages. Then I wrote a synopsis of 10 pages. And then eventually 15 pages. So I took those small steps. And I also attended seminars offered by professors apart from my colleague to see my guide, own PhD guide, to see what their research areas are, what their recommendations are, what they want us to focus on, because it is necessary to have that broader range of topics, because your PhD topic won't be something which we would be teaching or writing on for the entire life. So we have to have a broader range of topics as well. And that is what helped me. And then I practiced again. I like to write. So I practiced academic writing, because we also have to know what the department, what the professors call as good. What is for them a benchmark of good academic writing. So I practiced that, and I wrote academic papers on topics which had nothing to do with my PhD. But I just wanted to have that practice, and I ensured that I submitted those papers, the same paper, to more than one person, so that I get different feedbacks on different aspects, and then I improve. And that has helped me a lot.
Yes, that is a struggle, and only through that we can learn.
It is.
Then about your being multilingual, has it influenced your personal or professional life? Professional life, of course, but a personal also?
again, a difficult question. While learning a new foreign language, the teachers tend to encourage us to use that language as purely as possible. They discourage us to use words from English or Marathi while formulating sentences, say, in German. And I took that very seriously. But then I also realized that if I'm taking so much efforts to use a foreign language as purely as I can, I should also be able to speak my own mother tongue and use Marathi as purely as possible.
Right.
So I consciously started taking efforts to speak Marathi as purely as I can. Earlier, maybe I was not as conscious. I was not aware when I used to speak Marathi. Or also English. I mean, English is, because I'm so much involved in German now, English doesn't come to me naturally. But when I'm speaking English, I try to avoid using other words from other languages. So that is one thing, that awareness while speaking and sticking to the language that we are speaking, we are expressing our thoughts in. And secondly, communication skills. And I don't mean only having small talks with people whom you meet at the university or other social gatherings. I actually mean writing letters, writing mails to inquire something.
Yes.
For seeking advices, for arranging appointments, for instance. And I also try to be as prompt as possible while responding to the mails. And I don't mean that is obligatory, or I don't also intend to impress anyone. But if we are committed to something, if we have taken a responsibility, if we are involved wholeheartedly in something, I feel it is necessary that even the others should realize that I'm taking my job seriously. That's all. Nothing more than that. But it's that genuineness in our work ethics that should be somewhere visible to the others as well. And that the fact that it is genuine, that is more important, that we are not faking it.
Yes, it comes across like that.
Yes.
Certainly. How do you envision applying your language skills and the research competence that you are developing just now in a professional context?
I would be more than happy to be in the teaching line later professionally, because preparing for seminars, developing course contents, and then discussing what we have read, what our thoughts are, or what our approach is with others who are equally interested, that is a very enriching experience that teaches us a lot, personally. And I would also like to continue looking for topics for my own individual research, because in academics, that is the best way to continue to learn and remain a student.
Right.
Because the moment we stop thinking critically, I believe, I don't have that experience, but I believe that then one starts only preaching based on what we have once read and or studied. So I think that is very important. And thirdly, I would say I'm lucky that I, as an international student, have had this opportunity to pursue a doctoral studies program in Germany. And during these 3 years, I came in contact with many scholars, intellectuals in this field who are in Germany, in the US, and in India. And I would like to stay in touch with them. I would like to collaborate with them on new research projects. And I don't necessarily mean organizing conferences, but also to publish something so that it stays for a longer time, and then it is of use for students and researchers in a broader sense. That is something I would really want to do.
Wow, that's a good idea. What do you believe are the current trends or emerging areas in the field of languages?
Apart from what I've been talking till now, there are lots of avenues now in the field of foreign languages. In the corporate field, various multinational companies constantly need translators, be it Mercedes, T-Systems, Cognizant, BMW, and you being an experienced translator yourself, you know this better than I do. But customer support, as far as digital marketing is concerned, rectifying created content, cataloging, people need employees with good pre-existing language proficiency. And now the emerging trend is, I think, artificial intelligence. So people with a strong linguistic background have a huge chance there because they are developing these AI tools.
Right.
And then they also want the tools to be as accurate as possible. So the linguistics, I mean, I'm not an expert in linguistics or in AI, but the algorithms to rectify them and to ensure that they are as accurate as possible. People, not just with literature background, but also with linguistics background, they have a huge chance there. And I think for a long time, Deutsche Bank, which has its branches all over the world, they need language experts. They need people who know German really well, because I've heard that the complaint resolution system, when the customers fill those online forms, the data which is submitted, that is outsourced now, and India is a big market in that front. And then these employees who are in this department, they also have to attend calls with customers and then speak German with them. So there again, language experts are needed. And and also I think insurance companies, AXA and all, they also want language experts for customer support. I mean, I'm not an expert in this field, but my colleagues who have worked in Amazon or AXA, they keep telling me their experiences. They keep telling me how they meet others and then get to know more things about this field. The point I'm trying to make is now, at least, the time is different. So before 20 years, maybe it was different, but now entering the field of foreign languages does not necessarily mean that the only two professional chances, that the branches that people can choose between are teaching and translating. That is not the case anymore. That is all what I wanted to say.
Sure, Ritwik. Ritwik, you have participated in various workshops and symposiums. How is that experience?
It is a great learning experience, especially for senior research scholars. I mean, if we stay longer in academics beyond the masters, it can also get lonely because we don't have seminars, we don't have courses to do. We have our own research topic, a project, and the discussions that we have are with our guide, who is, or is supposed to be at least, far more experienced and knowledgeable in that particular area. And it can get lonely. And we also can, it is possible to start thinking only in a certain sense and then just ignore certain questions which would make sense or which are supposed to be in a part of your project for the larger reading group. So when we participate in a conference, in a workshop, and present something, our paper presentation is not that important. What is important is the feedback that we get after the presentation, because there your fellow colleagues, other faculty members from different parts, different departments of German studies in India, they all come together and they bring their own experience to the table, and their suggestions, they are really important in improving our own research projects. So we start writing not only for our guide, but for a larger audience, and that is really helpful.
Like and we say, Meinungsaustausch is what we are looking at here.
Yes, and also Meinungsunterschiede. It is important that someone contradicts us. That is when we actually start thinking and looking at our own topic critically and from a distance. And personally, I would also like to share this. The most important part of these conferences, workshops, symposiums is the lunch and coffee break. because the professors get more candid and they're more honest while expressing their opinions, while giving a feedback to the person who has just presented. And they also recommend further readings. So it is not just about our own project. You can be a part of a conversation when two other people are talking. And we get to learn a lot from that conversation. It is not about our project anymore. And in academics, and I also like to believe in professional fields, it is never just about an individual, but it is what an individual takes from the atmosphere, the infrastructure which is at his or her disposal. That is where learning really takes place.
It happens. Yes. Yes, you said it, and I totally agree. The discussions that happen over tea are the best. Tea or coffee.
Yes. The most informal conversations are the most enriching.
Yes, enriching. Yes, that's the word.
Yeah.
So back home, you taught at various institutes, including mine. So which aspect did you find the most challenging when it comes to teaching?
I would again like to go back to what I've said, being a clean slate.
Okay.
Being myself a clean slate, because I wanted to be open to everything but what was on offer. That doesn't really mean that the others sitting in front of you are also as open as you were once.
Right.
So it's easier said than done, and to encourage them to just be as open and just receive what is being offered, that is a real challenge. I don't know, maybe others would have different opinions, but this is what I've faced. People are going to ask all sorts of questions in the beginning itself. And to make them realize that asking such questions at the very beginning, it is going to make their life difficult. It is going to hamper their learning process. It is difficult because they believe they are doing something great by asking questions and not just accepting what a teacher is offering to them. And I think the generation has also changed. I mean, when I was a student of language, I mean, I'm still a student of literature and language, but formally when I was enrolled as a student at the Goethe Institute or at various institutes, I never really questioned what my teachers were telling, but people now also question at times. Are you sure? Have you checked? And I don't know. I believe it doesn't really help. And if at all the person has made a mistake, it is important for the student to realize that on his or her own. It doesn't have to be out there in public. So that is one thing. And I think lastly, I'm sure you would agree, but trying to develop a taste to read beyond the course material or those manuals which are meant for exam training phase.
Right.
Encourage people just to read. That is a challenge. And
that's a challenge, yes.
We have to, I think, keep our personal interests aside and just cater to what they want. And many are not even interested in learning the language. They just want a certificate for applying somewhere.
Yes.
And to respect that, I mean, there is nothing wrong in that. If someone belongs to the field of IT and wants to pursue a course in Germany, and that's why he or she needs a language certificate, I would not disrespect that, because I myself, if I have to do a course in C programming, I would be as blank and as disinterested as they are.
Right.
So just to keep calm and deal with that, it is a challenge. That was, I think, very challenging for me.
Well expressed. You have been translating short stories from German to Marathi, also writing various articles about your experiences in Germany that are published in reputed magazines. Going forward, do you plan to author books and translate books?
I don't see myself writing fiction anytime soon. I don't think that is my goal.
Okay.
but I would definitely like to continue to translate German texts into Marathi, more so Marathi, because German literature has been translated in English. There are translations, and it is important that our audience, our readers back home, they get to read something new, something which does not really belong to our cultural space, but still has certain similarities, certain differences. To see those differences, that is, I think, and it's literary expression. I think that is great fun. So I would, not just short stories, I would also, in the future, I hope I also get an opportunity to translate longer texts, as you said, maybe short novels, novellas. I would love to do that. I've also written a couple of articles sharing my experience in Germany, learning or studying German literature in Germany, and also the journey so far. I have enjoyed writing on that as well. What now I would really like to do is maybe write short articles, but a series or something like that on particular literary texts, particular literary periods, and focus on certain authors which are not known to our Marathi readers. Maybe writing on them. That is what I look forward to doing now. For instance, the author on whom I worked in my PhD, Hermann Broch, he's not known to many in Marathi-speaking cultural space. We know Kafka, we know Brecht, but these are the authors which people don't really know a lot about. So I would love to write on them and introduce them and their literature to Marathi readers. Oh, this will be wonderful. A very detailed and lovely conversation, Ritwik, with you. I hope to meet you soon when you are around in India. Yes. See you soon. Yes. See you. Bye-bye. Bye. And have a nice day.